The stars had belonged to the Valorian hegemony for 50,000 years. Their empire stretched across 12,000 star systems. Billions of worlds answered to their rule. They had conquered, explored, and mapped every corner of the galaxy. They believed they knew everything worth knowing. Observer Kethrall sat alone in his monitoring station, floating in the cold space above a small blue planet. His gray scales were dull with boredom. His 4 eyes stared at data screens without really seeing them. This was the worst assignment in the entire hegemony fleet. Watching primitives. The planet below was called Earth by its inhabitants. The hegemony called it World 7841c. It was a small rock orbiting a medium-sized yellow star. Nothing special. Nothing important. The creatures living there called themselves humans. Kethrall had been watching them for 3 years. 3 long, boring years. He opened a new report file and began typing with his clawed fingers. His mandibles clicked with each word he spoke aloud. Quarterly observation report. Species 7841c. Humans. He paused and looked at the planet spinning slowly below. Status unchanged. The species continues to burn fossil fuels for energy. They have basic nuclear technology, but use it poorly. They fight among themselves constantly. They have not yet left their own planet in any meaningful way. He added more notes. The humans had sent a few small machines to their moon and to nearby planets. They had satellites orbiting their world. They had discovered radio waves about 100 of their years ago. By hegemony standards, they were infants. Babies taking their first steps. Projected timeline to interstellar capability, Kethrall continued. 8,000 to 12,000 standard cycles. Threat level, negligible. Recommended action, continued passive observation. He sent the report to the Supreme Council and leaned back in his chair. The Council would not even read it. They had more important matters to consider. Wars to fight. Resources to gather. Rebellions to crush. Nobody cared about a primitive species on a backwater planet. Kethrall did not know that everything was about to change. Far below, in the frozen wilderness of a region the humans called Siberia, something was happening. A team of human scientists had been digging in the ice for months. They were looking for ancient remains of creatures long dead. What they found was something else entirely. The object was buried deep beneath the permafrost. It had been there for thousands of years. When the scientists first saw it, they did not understand what they were looking at. It was made of metal, but not any metal they recognized. Its shape was smooth and curved, like a teardrop frozen in time. Dr. Anna Korvich was the first to touch it. Her gloved hand brushed away centuries of ice and dirt. She saw strange symbols carved into its surface, writing in a language no human had ever seen. "What is this?" she whispered. Her team gathered around. They were scientists, trained to be skeptical, trained to question everything. But standing in that frozen pit, looking at something that was clearly not from Earth, they felt something they had never felt before: wonder and fear. In any other civilization, this discovery would have been buried, hidden away, worshipped or feared. The Valorians had found similar objects thousands of years ago. They had placed them in temples and called them gifts from the gods. Other species had done the same. Some had destroyed such objects, terrified of their power. But humans were different. Within hours, the object was being transported to a secret facility. Within days, the best scientists from a dozen countries were gathered to study it. Within weeks, they had made their first discovery. The object was not just a piece of alien technology. It was a library. Dr. James Chun was the one who figured it out. He was a young physicist with messy hair and tired eyes. He had not slept in 4 days. His hands shook as he connected his computer to the alien device. "It is responding," he said. "It is. It is trying to communicate." The symbols on the object's surface began to glow. Data flooded into their computers. More data than humanity had ever created. Blueprints, equations, histories, sciences that humans had never imagined. The object had been left on Earth long ago by a civilization called the Architects. They had seeded life across the galaxy billions of years in the past. They had left these devices on countless worlds, waiting to be found, waiting for species smart enough to understand them. Most species had failed that test. They had treated the devices as magic, as religion. They had worshipped what they did not understand. Humans did not worship. Humans asked questions. "How does this work?" Dr. Corvich said, staring at a schematic for a device that could bend space itself. "And how can we make it better?" That question would change the universe. In the months that followed, human scientists worked in secret. Governments that had been enemies for decades suddenly cooperated. The greatest minds on the planet focused on a single goal: understanding the architect technology and improving it. They made fusion reactors first, small ones hidden underground, then quantum computers that made their old technology look like children's toys. They learned about gravity and how to manipulate it. They discovered principles of faster-than-light travel that should have taken them centuries to develop. All of this happened in secret, below ground, out of sight. Above Earth, Observer Kethral continued his boring work. He filed his reports. He counted satellites. He watched the humans burn their oil and fight their little wars. He saw what they wanted him to see. He had no idea that beneath his feet, a revolution was taking place. One night, Dr. Chun stood on a hill in New Mexico, looking up at the stars. He thought about the Valorians watching from above. He thought about all the species out there in the darkness. He thought about what was coming. "They have no idea," he said quietly. "They think they know us. They think we are primitives, children playing with fire." He smiled. "They are going to be very surprised." In 18 months, humanity had made a leap that should have taken 8,000 years. They had gone from burning oil to bending the laws of physics, from primitive to advanced, from prey to predator. And the Valorian hegemony, with all its power and all its knowledge, had not noticed a thing. But they would. Very soon they would notice. And when they did, the entire galaxy would tremble. The age of human hiding was almost over. The age of human rising was about to begin. Observer Kethral was drinking his morning nutrient solution when the alarm went off. The sound cut through his small station like a knife. He spilled green liquid all over his console. "What?" he muttered, wiping the mess with his sleeve. "What now?" He had not heard that alarm in 3 years. It was the anomaly detector. Something on Earth had changed. Something big. His 4 eyes scanned the data screens. At first, he did not understand what he was seeing. The numbers made no sense. He ran the calculations again, then 12 more times. His mandibles began to tremble. "Impossible," he whispered. The readings showed a fusion signature on Earth's surface. Not a nuclear explosion. Not an accident. A controlled fusion reaction. Clean, stable, powerful. But that was impossible. 18 months ago, the humans were still burning fossil fuels. They were centuries away from fusion technology. Thousands of years away from making it work properly. Kethral's clawed fingers shook as he typed his report. This was not a normal observation anymore. This was an emergency. The Supreme Council received his message within minutes. High Arbiter Voshran himself read it. The old Valorian silver scales paled with concern. In 50,000 years of watching primitive species Nothing like this had ever happened. Send a stealth vessel, Voshran ordered. I want eyes on that planet, now. The stealth ship arrived in Earth's orbit within 3 days. It was the most advanced vessel in the hegemony fleet, completely invisible to any known technology. Its captain, a veteran soldier named Threshold, began his observations with confidence. That confidence died within hours. The humans were not just experimenting with fusion. They had already moved far beyond it. Threshold's sensors detected strange energy patterns across the planet. Underground facilities hummed with power sources his instruments could not identify. Quantum signals flickered between continents at impossible speeds. He deployed tiny observation drones, smaller than insects, to get a closer look. What they found made his blue blood run cold. In a laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, human scientists were testing gravitational manipulation. They were bending space itself, creating fields that could lift objects without touching them. This was technology that had taken the Valorians 10,000 years to develop. The humans had built it in months. In a facility under the Swiss Alps, another team was working on something even more terrifying. They were building a faster-than-light communication device. It was crude and rough around the edges, but it worked. Threshold listened to human communications. Scientists talked about warp fields and dimensional folding, not as dreams, not as theories, as engineering problems to be solved, as challenges to be overcome. This cannot be real, Threshold said to his crew. They were primitives. They were nothing. But the evidence was undeniable. In 18 months, humanity had advanced more than most species did in 10,000 years. They had leapt from the Stone Age to the Space Age in the blink of an eye. Threshold sent his report to the Supreme Council. His words were simple and terrifying. Species 7841C technological advancement rate has exceeded all known parameters. Current progression, approximately 4,000 years of development within 18 months. Cause unknown. Advise immediate council intervention. This species is no longer primitive. They are becoming dangerous. The Supreme Council convened in emergency session. This had not happened in 300 years. The great chamber on the hegemony homeworld filled with hundreds of representatives. Silver and gray scales gleamed under cold lights. Thousands of eyes watched the central platform. High Arbiter Voshran stood before them. He was old, even by Valorian standards. He had ruled the hegemony for 2,000 years. He had seen civilizations rise and fall. He had ordered the destruction of species that threatened Valorian dominance. "You have all seen the reports," he said. His voice echoed through the chamber. "The humans are evolving at an unprecedented rate. We do not know how. We do not know why. But we know what it means." He paused. The chamber was silent. "If we do not act, they will surpass us. Within years, perhaps months, they will become a threat to everything we have built." A younger council member raised his hand. "Perhaps we should contact them. Open diplomatic relations. Learn what they know." Voshran shook his head slowly. "We have watched thousands of species develop. Some we guided. Some we controlled. Some we eliminated. That is the way of the galaxy. The strong survive. The weak serve. And those who rise too fast, ... He let the words hang in the air. Those who rise too fast must be stopped. The council voted. The decision was nearly unanimous. A war fleet of 300 vessels would be dispatched to Earth. They would establish a blockade. They would demand that the humans surrender their technology. If the humans refused, the fleet would use force. If necessary, they would sterilize the planet entirely. It had been done before, many times. On Earth, the humans knew none of this. Or so the Valorians believed. In a secret command center deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. James Chun sat before a wall of screens. Data streams flowed across every surface. Communications from across the planet poured in constantly. A young officer approached his chair. "Sir, we have detected the Valorian fleet. 300 vessels, assembling at the edge of the system." Chun did not look surprised. He had been expecting this. "They found out about the fusion tests," he said calmly. "We knew they would eventually. We just needed a little more time. Do we have enough?" the officer asked. Chun smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had been preparing for this moment for a long time. "We have been monitoring their stealth ship for weeks," he said. "We cracked their communication codes months ago. We know exactly what they plan to do." He stood and walked to a window that looked out into a vast underground hangar. Rows of sleek vessels sat waiting. They were smaller than Valorian ships, stranger, built using principles that the hegemony had never imagined. "They think they are coming to destroy primitives," Chun said. "They think this will be easy. They have made a terrible mistake." Alarms began to sound across the base. Crews rushed to their stations. Engines powered up with a hum that shook the walls. "All units," Chun spoke into a microphone. His voice was calm and steady. "This is the moment we have prepared for. The Valorian fleet is on its way. They are coming to enslave us or destroy us. We will give them neither option." He looked at the ships in the hangar. Humanity's first true warships. Built in secret. Tested in silence. Ready for war. Today, we show the galaxy what humans can do. Today, we teach the hegemony to fear. 300 Valorian vessels approached Earth. Their commanders expected an easy victory. They expected primitives to surrender or die. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Fleet Commander Zoreth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. 300 Valorian warships followed behind him in perfect formation. Each vessel bristled with weapons that could crack planets. Each carried thousands of soldiers ready to die for the hegemony. This was the largest fleet assembled in 200 years. It was meant to send a message, not just to the humans, but to every species in the galaxy. The Valorians were still the masters. Anyone who forgot that lesson would be reminded. Zoreth looked at the blue planet growing larger on his view screen. Such a small world. Such a fragile species. He almost felt sorry for them. "Open a channel," he ordered. "All frequencies. I want every human on that planet to hear this." The communications officer obeyed. Zoreth's voice boomed across Earth. "Attention, humans. I am Fleet Commander Zoreth of the Valorian hegemony. Your planet is now under our control. You will immediately surrender all advanced technology. You will submit to hegemony rule. Resistance is pointless. You have 1 hour to respond." He cut the transmission and turned to his second-in-command. "They will surrender. They always do. Prepare the occupation forces." His second nodded. "And if they refuse, Commander?" Zoreth smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Then we burn their cities until they change their minds." 55 minutes passed in silence. No response came from Earth. Zoreth watched the clock with growing irritation. These primitives were wasting his time. "Commander," the sensor officer suddenly spoke. His voice was strange, confused. "I am detecting ... something." "What kind of something?" "Ships, sir. Coming from the planet, but..." The officer paused. "That cannot be right. Show me." The view screen shifted. Zoreth saw them. 50 human vessels rising from Earth's atmosphere. They were small compared to Valorian warships. Sleek and angular, with lines that seemed wrong somehow. They moved with speed and grace, It should have been impossible for ships their size. Zorath laughed. 50 ships? Against 300? They're either very brave or very stupid. Sir, their energy readings are ... unusual. I have never seen signatures like these before. It does not matter, Zorath said. All ships, battle formation. Destroy the human fleet. The Valorian armada moved forward. Weapons powered up. Shields activated. 300 ships against 50. It should have been a slaughter. It was a slaughter, but not the kind Zorath expected. The first human ship fired a beam of pure white light. It passed through the Valorian shields as if they did not exist. The cruiser Righteous Fury simply came apart. No explosion. No flames. The ship just fell to pieces, cut into sections by an invisible blade. What? Zorath shouted. Return fire, now. His ships launched everything they had. Plasma cannons roared. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams bright enough to melt mountains reached toward the human fleet. The human ships did not dodge. They did not need to. The missiles detonated before reaching their targets, destroyed by some kind of defensive field. The energy beams bent around the human vessels, twisted by forces that Valorian scientists could not explain. The plasma bursts simply vanished, swallowed by darkness. Impossible, the weapons officer stammered. Our weapons are not reaching them. More white beams flashed from the human fleet. Another Valorian ship died. Then another. Then 3 more at once. Zorath watched his fleet begin to crumble. He had never seen anything like this. No species in 50,000 years had been able to stand against Valorian weapons. No technology had ever bypassed their shields. Commander, his second said desperately, we must retreat. We cannot fight weapons we do not understand. Before Zorath could respond, something worse happened. His own ships began firing at each other. What is happening? He screamed. The answer came from a human transmission. A calm female voice filled his bridge. This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the Earth Defense Force. We have taken control of your navigation and weapon systems. Your fleet belongs to us now. Zorath stared at his screens in horror. The humans were inside his computers. They were turning his own weapons against him. Valorian ships exploded by the dozens, destroyed by their own cannons. 11 minutes. The battle lasted 11 minutes. Of 300 Valorian warships, 17 limped away. Their engines were crippled. Their weapons were dead. Their crews were in shock. They had come to conquer primitives. They had been utterly destroyed. Zorath's flagship was one of the survivors. The humans had spared it deliberately. They wanted him to carry a message home. Tell your hegemony what happened here, Commander Vasquez said through his damaged speakers. Tell them that Earth is not theirs to take. Tell them that the age of Valorian dominance is over. We are coming. The surviving ships crawled back to hegemony space. Their journey took weeks. When they finally arrived, the news spread like wildfire. The Supreme Council erupted in chaos. Some leaders demanded total war. They wanted to gather every ship in the Empire and crush the humans completely. Others counseled caution. If the humans could do this with 50 ships, what could they do with 500? With 5,000? High Arbiter Vashrin sat in silence while his council screamed and argued. He was old enough to recognize the truth. The galaxy had changed. Everything his people had built was now in danger. For 50,000 years, the Valorians had been the hunters. Now, for the first time, they were the hunted. What do we do? A young council member asked. Fear made his voice shake. What can we do? Vashrin had no answer. He had spent his long life controlling lesser species, managing them. destroying them when necessary. He had never imagined facing a species that was stronger. A species that might do to the Valorians what the Valorians had done to so many others. He looked at the reports from the destroyed fleet. The human weapons had been beyond anything in his experience, beyond anything in Valorian science. It was as if the humans had been touched by gods. Or perhaps they had found something that gave them power beyond all reason. Something that the Valorians themselves had missed. Find out how they did this, Vashran ordered. I do not care what it costs. I need to know where their power comes from, and I need to know if we can take it from them. His people rushed to obey. Spies were sent. Intelligence was gathered. Slowly, the truth began to emerge. The architect probe, the ancient technology, the knowledge hidden within it. Other species had treated such objects as sacred. The Valorians themselves had locked their probe away in a temple, worshipping it without understanding it. The humans had taken their probe apart. They had studied it, learned from it, improved upon it. In trying to understand this primitive species, the Valerians had made a fatal mistake. They had assumed humans were like everyone else. They had assumed humans could be controlled. They were wrong, and now the entire galaxy would pay the price for that error. The Valorian homeworld had not known fear in 10,000 years. Now fear filled every street and every home. News of the destroyed fleet had spread across the empire. 300 ships gone, an entire armada broken like toys against a species that had been burning fossil fuels 2 years ago. The Supreme Council met daily. Arguments filled the great chamber. Voices rose in anger and panic. Plans were made and rejected. No one knew what to do. High Arbiter Vashran watched his empire begin to crack. Leaders who had been loyal for centuries now questioned his decisions. Military commanders who had never lost a battle now spoke of defense instead of attack. The foundation of Valorian power was crumbling. We must strike now, General Threshkull shouted at one meeting. Gather every ship, every weapon, crush them before they grow stronger. And if we fail again? Another council member asked. What then? We will have nothing left to defend ourselves with. We will not fail. We cannot fail. We are the Valorian hegemony. But his words rang hollow. Everyone remembered what happened to the last fleet that said such things. Then, a strange signal reached hegemony space. It came from the border, traveling through channels no one had ever seen before. The message was simple. We are coming to talk. One ship, no weapons. Will you listen? The council debated for hours. Some called it a trap. Others saw it as a chance to learn more about the enemy. In the end, Vashran made the decision himself. Let them come, he said. I want to see these humans with my own eyes. The human ship arrived 3 days later. It was small and elegant, shaped like a teardrop made of silver light. It moved through space with impossible grace, leaving ripples in reality behind it. Valorian scientists scanned it constantly. They understood almost nothing of what they saw. The ship carried only one person, Commander Elena Vasquez. She was small by Valorian standards. Her skin was dark brown. Her eyes were bright and sharp. She wore a simple uniform without medals or decorations. She stepped off her ship and onto the Valorian station with perfect calm. Guards surrounded her. Weapons pointed at her from every direction. She did not seem afraid. Take me to your leader, she said in perfect Valorian. We have much to discuss. High Arbiter Vashran received her in his private chambers. He had lived for 2,000 years. He had met kings and conquerors. He had watched species rise and fall. But something about this small human made him uneasy. You destroyed our fleet, he said. You killed thousands of my people, and now you come here alone. Either you are very brave, or you believe we cannot harm you." Commander Vasquez smiled softly. "I am not here to threaten you, High Arbiter. I am here to offer you a choice." She reached into her pocket. Every guard in the room raised their weapons. She pulled out a small device, no bigger than her palm. "This contains data," she said. "Historical records, scientific knowledge, the truth about the galaxy and everything in it. Before you decide whether to attack us again, I think you should see what we have learned." Voshran took the device carefully. His scientists would examine it later. For now, he wanted answers. "How did you do it?" he asked. "How did you advance so quickly? It should have taken you thousands of years. Do you know what an architect probe is?" Vasquez asked. Voshran nodded slowly. "Ancient artifacts. We found one on our homeworld long ago. We keep it in a temple. It is sacred to our people." "Sacred," Vasquez repeated. "You worshipped it, just like every other species that found one. You put it on a pedestal and prayed to it. You never asked how it worked. You never tried to understand it." She leaned forward. "We found one too, buried in ice on our planet. And we did not worship it. We took it apart. We studied every piece. We learned its secrets." She paused. "And then we made it better." Voshran felt cold despite the warm room. "You improved architect technology? That is impossible. The architects were gods." "They were not gods," Vasquez said firmly. "They were people. Advanced, yes. Powerful, certainly. But people? They lived and learned and died, just like everyone else. The data in that device tells their whole story." She stood and walked to the window. Stars filled the darkness outside. The architects seeded life across this galaxy billions of years ago. They left probes on countless worlds, hoping that someday a species would find one and understand it. Most species failed that test. They saw magic instead of science. They saw gods instead of teachers. "But you were different," Voshran said quietly. "We were curious," Vasquez replied. "We asked questions. Why does this work? How can we make it work better? What else is possible? That is what makes humans different. We never accept the world as it is. We always want to change it, to improve it, to grow." She turned to face him. "In 18 months, we went from primitive to divine, because we refused to worship what we could understand instead." Voshran was silent for a long moment. His whole view of the universe was shifting. Everything he believed about the natural order was wrong. "What do you want?" he finally asked. "Revenge? Power? The destruction of our empire?" Vasquez shook her head. "We want none of those things. We did not come here to conquer. We came to warn you." She pointed to the data device in his hands. "Read the architect records. Learn what happened to them. They became so powerful that they stopped growing. They thought they had reached the top. They had nothing left to strive for. And slowly, over millions of years, they died out." Her voice grew serious. "But that is not the worst part. The architects were not alone in the universe. There are things out there between the galaxies. Dark things, ancient things, hungry things. The architects fought them once. They barely survived. And now those things are still out there, waiting." Voshran felt a chill run through his old bones. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that your empire is small," Vasquez said. "My species is young. Alone, neither of us will survive what is coming. But together, with the knowledge and resources of 1,000 species working side by side." She extended her hand. It was an ancient human gesture. Voshran knew. a sign of trust and partnership. We do not want to rule over you. We want to lift you. All of you. Every species you have held down. Every world you have controlled. The time for fear and domination is over. The time for cooperation is now. Voshrin looked at her hand. He looked at the data device. He thought about everything he had built and everything he had done. You are asking me to change everything, he said. Yes, Vasquez agreed. I am asking you to grow. The High Arbiter of the Valorian hegemony stood at a crossroads. Behind him was 50,000 years of conquest and control. Before him was something unknown, something frightening, something that might just be the salvation of everything he cared about. He looked into the human's eyes and saw no deception. Only hope, only determination, only the burning desire to reach for something greater. I need time, he said, to think, to read, to understand. Vasquez nodded. Take the time you need, but do not take too long. The darkness at the edge of the galaxy is not patient, and it has already started to notice our light. She returned to her ship and left Valorian space. Behind her, she left a High Arbiter with a universe of questions and a small device that contained all the answers. The future of the galaxy now rested in his ancient hands. High Arbiter Voshrin did not sleep for 3 weeks. He read every piece of data that Commander Vasquez had given him. He watched recordings of the architect civilization at its peak. He saw their great cities and their mighty ships. He learned about their science and their art and their dreams. And he saw how they died. The architects had conquered death itself. They had mastered every science. They had bent the laws of physics to their will. They had become gods in all but name. But gods have no challenges. Gods have nothing left to achieve. And without challenge, without growth, without the struggle to become something more, the architects had simply faded away. Their civilization had crumbled. Their knowledge had been lost. Only the probes remained, scattered across the galaxy like seeds waiting to bloom. Then Voshrin read about the other thing, the darkness beyond the edge of known space. The architects had called them the Void Walkers, ancient beings from before the stars were born. They fed on light and life and thought. They had attacked the architects at the height of their power. The war had lasted 1,000,000 years. The architects had won, but barely. They had pushed the Void Walkers back into the empty spaces between galaxies. But they had not destroyed them. Nothing could destroy them. They were patient. They were waiting. And now, after billions of years, they were beginning to stir again. Voshrin put down the data device. His hands were shaking. His whole understanding of the universe had been torn apart and rebuilt. Everything his people had done for 50,000 years seemed small and pointless now. He called for his personal transport. There was only one place he needed to go. Commander Vasquez's ship waited at the border of hegemony space, exactly where she had said it would be. Voshrin's transport docked with it. He walked through the airlock alone, leaving his guards behind. The inside of the human vessel defied his understanding. Spaces folded into other spaces. Walls existed in multiple dimensions at once. Energy flowed through systems that seemed to anticipate thought itself. It was beautiful and terrifying. Vasquez met him in a room that looked out at the stars. She was dressed simply as before. Her eyes held no arrogance, no triumph, only patience. "You read the data," she said. It was not a question. "Yes," Voshrin's voice was heavy. "I understand now. Why you came to us. Why you offered peace instead of war. And I am afraid." The admission was difficult. Voshrin had not spoken those words in centuries. The Void Walkers. They are real. They are coming, and we are not ready. Vasquez nodded slowly. No one is ready. Not alone. That is why we need each other. Voshrin walked to the window. He looked out at the stars he had ruled for so long. 12,000 systems. Billions of worlds. Countless lives under his protection. I spent 2,000 years building an empire based on control, he said quietly. We took what we wanted. We crushed anyone who threatened us. We believed we were the strongest, the best, the only ones who mattered. He turned to face her. We were wrong. About everything. Vasquez did not gloat. She did not say she had told him so. She simply waited. What do you want from us? Voshrin asked. Truly, what role do you see for the Valorian people in this new order you are building? The same role as everyone else, Vasquez replied. Partners, equals, builders of something greater than any one species could create alone. She walked to stand beside him at the window. Your people have 50,000 years of experience ruling the stars. You know things we do not. You have made mistakes we can learn from. And you have strengths that will be needed in the battles to come. But you will lead, Voshrin said. Humanity will be at the head of this new civilization. Vasquez shook her head. No, we will not lead. We will inspire. We will push. We will ask the questions that others are afraid to ask. That is what humans do. But leading? She smiled softly. That is a burden that must be shared. She held out her hand again. The same gesture from before. Trust, partnership, hope. High Arbiter Voshrin, on behalf of humanity and all the species who dream of something better, I invite you to join us. Not as subjects, not as servants, as equals, as friends. Voshrin looked at her hand. He thought about his people, his empire, everything he had built and everything he had destroyed. He thought about the darkness waiting at the edge of the galaxy. He thought about the choice before him. Behind him lay the old ways, control, fear, power through domination. It had worked for 50,000 years, but it would not work against what was coming. Before him lay uncertainty, change, the terrifying possibility of becoming something new. He reached out and took her hand. I accept, he said, for my people, for all peoples. We will stand together. In the months that followed, everything changed. The Valorian hegemony opened its borders for the first time in history. Species that had been conquered were set free. Worlds that had been exploited were given aid. Knowledge that had been hoarded was shared openly. Human technology spread across the galaxy, not as a weapon, but as a gift. Diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia were cured. Energy sources that seemed like magic transformed poor worlds into gardens. Ships that bent space itself made travel between stars as easy as walking across a room. But the humans did not simply give. They taught. They encouraged. They asked questions that no one had thought to ask. Why do you do things this way? What if you tried something different? What would happen if you combined your knowledge with theirs? Species that had been enemies for centuries began to work together. Scientists from 100 worlds shared their discoveries. Artists created works that blended 1,000 traditions into something entirely new. The Galactic Commonwealth was born, not through conquest, but through cooperation. Not through fear, but through hope. And then, 50 years later, the darkness came. The first signs appeared at the galaxy's edge. Stars went dark. Worlds fell silent. Something vast and ancient was moving through the void, drawn by the light of a thriving civilization. The Void Walkers had awakened. They came in ships that seemed to be made of shadow itself. They carried weapons that erased existence rather than destroying it. They were hungry after billions of years of waiting. But they did not find a galaxy of frightened primitives. They did not find weak species fighting among themselves. They found the Galactic Commonwealth. 10,000 species stood together. 1,000,000 worlds united as one. Technology that blended the wisdom of ages past with the innovation of humans created defenses the Void Walkers had never faced. The battle for the galaxy had begun. Dr. James Chun, now old but still sharp, watched the first engagement from a command center on Earth. Ships from every corner of the galaxy flew side by side. Valorian battle cruisers fought alongside human frigates. Species that had once tried to destroy each other now protected each other. "We are holding," an officer reported. "The line is stable." Chun nodded slowly. He thought about the day he had first touched the Architect probe. He thought about the young physicist he had been, shaking with excitement and fear. He had dreamed of what humanity might become. This was beyond his dreams. "Send a message to all fleets," he said. "Tell them what we are fighting for. Remind them why we stand together." The message went out across the stars. Simple words in 1,000 languages. "We are the children of the architects. We are the keepers of the light. We stand together against the darkness. And we will never fall." The battle raged on. There would be losses. There would be sacrifices. The war against the Void Walkers would last for generations. But for the first time in billions of years, the galaxy had hope. Humanity had not conquered the stars. They had awakened them. They had lifted ancient empires out of fear and stagnation. They had asked the simple question that changed everything. What if we became something greater? And across 1,000,000,000,000 worlds, under 1,000,000,000 suns, the answer was the same. Yes, together, we can. The age of isolation was over. The age of growth had begun, and the light of the Galactic Commonwealth burned bright against the endless dark. This was only the beginning.